You hear it everywhere, don't you? It's this constant drumbeat in the news, in our conversations, this feeling that trust is just collapsing. Trust in government, in the media, in pretty much all our big institutions. It just feels like we're all standing on much shakier ground. And that feeling, it leads to this huge, nagging question that I think a lot of us are asking. Why? I mean, why does it feel like the very foundation of how we trust each other is just crumbling away? Is something fundamentally broken? Well, the story we usually tell ourselves is that trust is kind of like this one big tank of water, and it's just slowly draining away for everybody, everywhere, for all the same reasons. We think it's this single monolithic thing, and we're all just getting more cynical. But what if that entire story is just plain wrong?
Okay, let's get into this, because this is where it gets really fascinating. The myth is that there's just one kind of trust, but the reality, and this is backed by research from 78 countries, is that there are many different kinds of trust. See, trust isn't a single thing at all. It's actually a whole series of different psychological contracts, and each one has its own rules, its own expectations, and its own unique breaking points.
So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack this whole new framework. First, we'll talk about why trust isn't just one thing. Then, we'll dive into four completely distinct realities of how people trust. After that, we'll look at how you build the right kind of trust for each one, offer a quick word of caution, and then we'll end with a final question that might just change how you see all of this. All right, so to really get our heads around this, we need a new way of looking at it. And the key that unlocks this whole puzzle is a model of human development called spiral dynamics. It's what helps us understand all the different value systems that really shape how we see the world. So, in a nutshell, spiral dynamics shows us that as our life conditions change, the challenges we face, the places we live, our core values and our ways of thinking evolve right along with them. These value systems, called vMEMEs, aren't better or worse than each other, they're just different adaptations. And, as we're about to see, they have a massive impact on how we trust. So here's the crucial point. The data shows there are at least four distinct realities of trust. People aren't all just losing faith in the same way. No, they're pulling their trust back for completely different reasons, and it's all based on their underlying value systems. Let's take a look at the evidence. First up, we have what's called the blue reality. What the data shows is a negative correlation between people who have strong blue values, values that prioritize order, duty, moral authority, and their confidence in charitable organizations. So the stronger their blue thinking, the less they trust these institutions that claim to have a moral purpose. Now, what's really interesting here is the why. For someone with a blue worldview, an institution like a charity isn't just a company providing a service. No, it's supposed to be part of the architecture of meaning, a real physical symbol of moral order. So when that institution gets hit by a scandal, it's not just a letdown, it's an existential betrayal. Their distrust isn't simple cynicism, it's a genuine mourning for a world that suddenly doesn't make sense anymore. Okay, let's move on to the yellow reality and see how different this is. Here, we see an even stronger negative correlation. This time, it's between yellow values, which are all about systems thinking, flexibility, and adaptability, and trust in a rigid bureaucracy like NATO. And this just brilliantly illustrates the difference. For a yellow thinker, the question isn't, is NATO good or evil? The question is this institution still fit for its purpose? They look at an organization that was designed for the Cold War, and they see it struggling to adapt to 21st century problems. They see mission creep, bureaucratic slowdowns. For yellow, pulling back their trust isn't some emotional crisis. It's a logical conclusion. It's just analytical frustration. The system is obsolete. Now, let's get to the strongest correlation in the entire data set, the red reality. There's a very strong negative correlation between red values, which are all about power, autonomy, being strong, and agreeing with the statement, most people can be trusted. So the key thing to get here is that this isn't just about hating people. It's a completely rational, adaptive response to a world that feels competitive, tough, and where resources are scarce. From a red worldview, naive trust is a huge liability. It's basically an open invitation to get taken advantage of. Trust isn't something you just give away. It's something that has to be earned through action, through shows of strength, through reciprocity. As they see it, trusting people gets you hurt. You have to watch what people do, not what they say. But it's not all negative correlations. Let's look at the green reality, which actually shows a positive one. The data tells us that people with strong green values, which really prioritize community, inclusion, social justice, are more likely to have quite a lot of confidence in universities. And again, the why is everything. Green doesn't trust universities just because they're old, prestigious authorities. No, they trust them when they act as platforms for community, for conversation, for tackling injustice. For the green worldview, trust isn't something that's granted from the top down. It's co-created from the bottom up, through relationships, through making sure everyone has a voice, and a shared commitment to fairness.
Okay, so we've got one big problem, this breakdown in trust, but it's coming from many different causes. And what that means is that any one-size-fits-all solution is absolutely 100% guaranteed to fail. You can't rebuild trust with generic slogans about transparency. You have to speak the right language of trust to the right people.
So how do you actually do it? Well, for red, you build trust by proving there's predictable reciprocity. You show them the rules are fair and the consequences are real and consistent. For blue, you have to reestablish moral authority. It's all about visibly, clearly aligning your actions with your stated values. And for yellow, you've got to demonstrate systemic adaptability. You have to show them the organization can actually learn, take feedback, and evolve.
And this is where things go wrong all the time in the real world, especially for managers. So picture a blue manager who trusts the process and the rules, trying to manage a red employee. The manager says, just follow the code of conduct. But the red employee's thinking, is this actually fair? Show me with your actions that my loyalty is going to be rewarded. They're speaking completely different languages of trust, and it just creates this massive gap between them.
Now, before we finish up, it is incredibly important to be super clear about what this data does not say. This framework is a really powerful tool, but it is not a crystal ball, and it's essential that we use it with some nuance. First, these are just general tendencies, not rigid rules for every single person. Second, and you've heard it before, correlation is not causation. Third, and this is so key, no value system is better or worse at trust. Each one is just a specific adaptation to different life conditions. And finally, this data describes how people trust. It doesn't tell you who or what you should trust. So, all of this brings us to our final thought. Once we really understand that trust isn't one thing, but many things, it forces us to completely reframe the conversation and move away from this simple panic about a total collapse. And so, I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. Is this widespread decline in institutional trust really a crisis? Or could it be a sign of something else entirely, a kind of collective intelligence? Are we all just becoming more discerning, more demanding, and frankly, more mature about where, how, and why we give our trust? What if this isn't a trust collapse? What if it's a trust upgrade?